At least 8 human skulls and other skeletal remains have been found at a construction site in Imphal. The site was occupied by paramilitary forces, raising fears among many that the skeletal remains may have come from victims of extrajudicial killings. B. Sunzu and Alok Pandey report.
The discovery of these skeletal remains in Imphal at a construction site of a new market complex has led to more worries for the families of those in Manipur whose relatives disappeared in the last 3 decades or so. Their bodies never found. For long, these families have alleged that those who disappeared were actually killed in counterinsurgency operations in the state, most of them fake encounters, their bodies dumped.
गवर्नमेंट ने इसको पता लगा करके जो हम लोग को दिन में दुख पाता इसको अच्छा कर देने से आप लोग को भी भगवान दया करेगा.
The construction site where the skeletons were found used to be a high school, which was shifted to another part of the city many years ago. Since then, the site was used by different security agencies in Manipur before the state government decided to build a new market complex here. Digging was on here for the last few days.
सुनने के टाइम में ऐसा सोच रहा था हमारा लापता लोग के अंदर से कोई लोग हो सकता है, इसलिए हम फर्दर इन्वेस्टिगेशन करवाने के लिए.
The Manipur police, which has registered a case, is so far non-committal on the controversies surrounding the discovery of the skeletons, saying they will send the remains for forensic evaluation.
When you go through the process of carbon dating, I think the exact year and date will be found out.
Sources in Manipur University's anthropology department who inspected the remains say they could be anywhere between 17 to 40 years old. Human rights activists in Manipur say they want a thorough inquiry in the case. Manipur has often seen allegations of enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings by security forces. A clubbed case of over 1,500 fake encounter killings is currently pending in the Supreme Court of India. For now, the families of the Disappeared People's Association says they will petition the Chief Minister to immediately get digging in the area stopped and a thorough inquiry to be conducted. Till then, the tension around this discovery is set to continue. With B. Sunzu in Imphal and Alok Pandey, this is Madhusudan for NDTV.
The question we're asking, skeletons in Manipur's cupboard, does the Armed Forces Special Powers Act need a rethink? Well, joining us from Imphal, we spoke earlier to Bablu Loitungam. He's a human rights activist. Also in our Delhi studios, Meenalakshmi Nepram. She's a writer and activist. From Delhi as well, G.K. Pillai, former Home Secretary. And from Kolkata, General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, former Chief of Army Staff. I spoke earlier, as I said, to human rights activist Bablu Loitungam in Imphal, and I began by asking him why these fears are there that these skeletal remains could be extrajudicial killings.
See, it is not 1 or 2 skeletons. We are talking about 8 skeletons found at the same place. And the initial response from the forensic science people have indicated that this is skeletons that has been there for the last 17 to 40 years. This roughly coincides with the time period when this enforced disappearances, people who have picked up from home, picked up from streets, taken to the army camp and never came out from those camps. This place, which is being dug up, was used by BSF, CRPF and the Manipur police commandos for a very long period of time. So it is very likely that these skeletal remains could actually be those people who were beaten up in the army camps and then dumped in these areas. There are very strong chances that this could indeed be those people who have disappeared.
Very strong chances, you say, though there's no conclusive proof either way as yet, Mr. Loitungam. But the larger question of disappearances, especially in Manipur, several cases that the Supreme Court has stepped in. Do you see a change in attitude among politicians or the security forces?
Well, most of the cases that the Supreme Court is dealing are basically extrajudicial executions. And of course, definitely, once the Supreme Court have started taking this process and have instituted this high-level commission of inquiry headed by Santosh Hegre, there is a marked change in the attitude of both the politicians as well as the security forces. We are happy to bring to light that the phenomena of extrajudicial killings is almost non-existent today in Manipur.
Non-existent, Mr. Lotingbam, you're saying the army on its part argues for AFSPA, saying it needs the immunity to operate in conditions like this. We've seen in Kashmir action has been taken against them also in the recent past.
See, there is a huge difference between the way AFSPA operates and how the whole criminal justice system or the law enforcement official respond to this. In Kashmir, AFSPA came only in 1990s, whereas in the Northeast it has been there since the 50s. So the impunity, the climate of impunity with which the military operates is almost complete in the Northeast. In Kashmir, the police file FIR against the army, they do investigation against the army, and they seek prosecution sanction from the central government. Whereas in the case of Manipur or Nagaland or what happened in Mizoram in the 60s, you can't imagine police registering any case against the army.
Sure, but Mr. Lotingbam, would you agree that the Supreme Court intervening has made a difference?
This is again a golden opportunity to re-establish rule of law in Manipur. The evidence are coming out. The skeletons are there to tell their stories. It is just that the government has to create the environment where they can tell the stories in a way that is fair, just, and it will be such a relief for many of the people who are starved of justice for so many decades altogether.
Starved for justice for so many decades. Bablu Lotingbam, who I was speaking to earlier from Imphal. Let me now get in Mr. G.K. Pillai. Mr. Pillai, you've been closely associated with internal security, whether it's in the Northeast, whether it's in Naxal-affected areas, whether it's in Jammu and Kashmir. What would you say about this latest story that we don't have conclusive proof yet that there could be extrajudicial killings in Manipur?
See, I think right now everything is very speculative. The bodies have been discovered just now. Right. You'll need the full detailed forensic as well as DNA examination, carbon dating and so on to be able to first find out when the range at which these people died, and if we can identify them through any other evidence which is there. Rest is all speculation right now.
Right.
But I would agree with what the previous speaker said, that the government has been very, very clear, at least I know in the last 2 decades, been very clear that extrajudicial killings or encounter killings are not permitted at all under any circumstance whatsoever.
Of course, no
and
one
therefore
can justify
that message has gone right down in the police training colleges as well as in the National Police Academy to all the officers and men of the police forces. So I think
but
we'll have to wait and
Mr.
see.
Pillai, the larger question of AFSPA, especially in the Northeast, now Nagaland, for example, the ceasefire since 2001, there have been small incidents. Why do we still need AFSPA in regions like that?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think as Union Home Secretary, I was very clear in my note that there is no need for AFSPA in Nagaland, because what one has to realize is that you have to declare an area as disturbed, which means that the civil administration cannot function, and therefore you are bringing the army in to restore order and then hand back the administration back in one sense to the civil administration. So you cannot have in one sense AFSPA continuing for years and years, which is really a reflection on the state government being totally incompetent and saying that they are not able to function in that area.
Let me take that point to General Roy Chaudhary. General Roy Chaudhary, the Army, the Defence Ministry, the Raksha Mantri have all been arguing against AFSPA being dropped, whether it's in certain areas in Jammu and Kashmir, etc. What's your view on that, sir?
My view is, if the government, whether central or state, deploy the army in any particular area, if the army is kept in any area for internal security or law and order, AFSPA must be there. So if you don't want AFSPA, take away the army. And the AFSPA will go with it.
Okay, so that's your point.
Simple as that.
As simple as that. Lakshmi and Nepram, can I bring you into this whole debate
Absolutely.
now?
In fact, the discovery of human remains, of about 8 human remains, including bangles and other belongings which may belong to even a woman there. Right now, it's has come as a terribly shocking news to all of us, but it was not unexpected because Manipur is dotted with so many what I call conflict tombs. If you come to Manipur today, not just Malom, Oinam 1987, where 15 killed, RIMS, Regional Medical College, where 9 people, including a medical student, was killed. Tonsem Lamkhai 1999, where 10 were killed. Tera Bazar 1993, where 5 were killed. Malom. And I grew up in a place, Herangoitong, where more than 13 were killed, gunned down by the Central Reserve Police Force. So right now, this is just a beginning. What we saw, that 8 skeletons, 8 skulls, is just a beginning.
Sure.
If you dig, even Kangla, I find that even you will find many, many more remains.